Chattanooga 70.3
69.1?
now 69.1. As in life, not everything goes to plan, and that's how my bike ride went.
A year ago here, I had a little bit of a bike mishap where I crashed.
Yeah, this is my first triathlon where the swim was canceled.
It's sort of liberating to not have that pressure, and I'm just gonna go out probably harder on the bike than I had originally planned, and just see what happens.
I've done over 20, close to 30, 70.3 distance races, and I've never once had a race where the swim was canceled. So this was the first time the swim was canceled for me. And honestly, I was okay doing just the bike and the run. The swim portion is the weakness of the three for me, and that gave me the green light to go out and just rip it on the bike and hold on the run and just see what happened.
The swim is my weakest discipline. So to be able to just skip it and start on the bike, that's not bad news. It's almost like a metaphor for life. You can choose to be mad about something or find the good in something. It gave me freedom that I wouldn't have had if I came into the day thinking about sub 5. And if we had had the swim, that would have been my sole focus.
Once a volunteer came to our rack and said, all right, it's your turn, you go line up, we all unwrapped our bikes and we made our way to the start line. And once we began that start line, things really got to moving really quickly. And actually it took me a little bit by surprise by how quickly we got to the start line. Once our row made it to the start line area, they divided us up into 3 lines. We divvied up in 3 lines, and I believe it was every 5 seconds 3 riders went off, and surprisingly that went really quick. Started with 1 foot clipped in and just kind of scooched along, and then got to the front of the line, that beep went off. Volunteers had their hands up, they put them down, and we were off on our race.
I was just thinking, I really better clip in on the first attempt or I'm just gonna be humiliated. And I knew that Katie was watching and Tiffany was watching and Caitlin was 1 spot in front of me, and I was just like, I'm clipping into this bike and I better not mess it up.
I just tried to keep the mentality of staying strong and continuously telling myself that I can do hard things. I can ride hard. And fortunately, I had just done a 40K time trial just the weekend before, which that was the same mindset going into that. Just, you know, put it down, see what you can do. If you blow up, you blow up, but let's just go out and see what you can do. See what kind of numbers you can put out there, and that's exactly what I went into today. That's the mindset I had today. Let's throw it all down on the bike and just see what happens and deal with the run when I get to that point.
I slammed that right shoe in, slammed the left shoe in, and I was off. But like honestly, one of the more nerve-wracking points of the day was watching Caitlin set off, and I knew I had 5 seconds to get ready or somebody was coming behind me. And like I said, thankfully, clipped right in, off and up the hill, and off we went. A year ago, I was 238. Today, I was 225, and that's quite the jump. But the time that I keep going back to in my mind is honestly 2019, when I really didn't know what I was doing, and I finished in something like 4:30. Part of why I like coming back to Chattanooga every year is it gives me a chance to see year over year how I'm doing. I know where the hills are, I know where to burn a match, I know where to kind of dig in. And I just remember thinking over and over again, wow, I'm already here. I'm already at Andrews Climb. I'm already coming into Chickamauga. I'm already back on the highway. So it wasn't like one particular thing. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, 15 minutes on a bike ride, it's not gonna feel like a lot, like 238 to 225, but I knew I was having a good day, and it really was just making sure that that continued all the way back to transition.
The last time I did this race, I did the 56-mile bike ride in 2 hours, 38 minutes, and some change, 50 seconds or so. So I knew that that was my goal. I was gonna come in under that time. If I didn't come in under that time, then something drastically went wrong. You know, that was my goal. I had that number in mind and I knew what I needed to do to get there. Ultimate, really what I wanted to do was go sub 230. That was the A goal. As in life, not everything goes to plan, and that's how my bike ride went. At mile 21, the road surface went from really smooth and nice to very rough. It was 2 miles of really rough pavement, and my standout moment of the entire day was probably about mile 22. 1 mile into this rough road, I realized, oh my gosh, my aero bars, which are typically like this, are now like this. And so at first I was like, is this really happening, or am I imagining this? And I was not imagining it. So I tried a little while to kind of pull them up, putting some force and energy into it and trying to pull it up, but it was not budging. And the road was still rough. The longer I stayed in aero, the further they dipped down. And so that was creating an issue. I remember one of the last things Tiffany told me before I took off on my race was to stay safe. And that played in my mind. I was like, all right, well, I sat up, I was in my bars, and I'm thinking to myself, I've practiced so long to be in aero and to create the most aero position that I could, and now here I am sitting up creating this big parachute, and it was frustrating for a moment. It really was. And then my thought was, I still got Andrews Hill. That comes at mile 26, and I don't need to be in aero for that. So let me just get to Andrews Hill, and then I'll deal with it. We'll get to that point. Getting to Andrews Hill, I do know that it's best to approach that in your small ring. So I knew the turn was coming up. I got into my small ring. It's a little bit unfortunate because you lose some of that speed that you wish that you could keep to propel you up Andrews Hill. So got into the small ring. I was able to get some force, some momentum going, which helped me up the hill, but I got into my smallest ring and I just powered up it, and I was really proud of the effort that I had getting up it. I know that it's not long after Andrews Hill that there is a ripping downhill segment, and maybe I'm a little bit of a daredevil, I don't know, but I really enjoyed just letting it rip and just letting it fly. I just kind of got tucked as best I could, let it rip down, and I still managed to have a really good clock time going down it. So I rode like this for 20 miles. I was like, all right, I'm losing time here. I know that it's just best to get off and fix it. I knew that I had the tool on my bike to handle this, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. Mile 41 comes, and there's a nice bit of shoulder, and so I put my hand down, kind of let the cyclist know behind me that I was braking and I was stopping, and I pointed to a spectator. I said, hey, I'm coming to you, and I braked, and I got to him. I said, hey, all I need you to do is just hold my bike, and he was more than gracious to help me out with that. So I got my multi-tool out of my flat kit box. I straightened him up. It was actually, I straightened him too high, but in the moment, I just was gonna do what I could do, and I tried to tighten it back up as best as I could. I asked the gentleman what his name was. His name is Mike, and he's a big Vanderbilt fan. He was repping the hat and the t-shirt, and he said he was out there supporting his wife today. So best of luck to his wife. I hope she had a marvelous day, and again, thank you to Mike, because you helped make my race a better race than it could have been. Even with all that drama, my previous best was 2:38. Today I went 2:31. It wasn't my ultimate A goal time, but considering what I went through, I am dang proud with it, and I am very, very happy with how my ride went.
When Kate and I set off at the beginning of the bike ride, this wasn't an idea in my head, but as the day kind of went on and the ride went on, I started to kind of set the plan to be, if I wasn't nervous and uncomfortable as the run began, I didn't push hard enough. For Chattanooga, you kind of come into transition, and it's downhill on that last kind of half mile, quarter mile or whatnot, and ran my bike in, and I was like, oh man, I'm feeling some work, and now I've got to run 13.1 miles. Let's just see what happens. If I blow up on the run, so be it. If it's an awesome run, well, now I know I should be pushing myself harder on the bike.
normal. I usually pride myself with the transition times, and today was no different. Ooh, wasn't mechanical. Oh shit. Yeah, had to get off. I'm okay. I came in, I racked my bike. As I took one bike shoe off, I put a run shoe on, got both run shoes on, I put my hat on, I grabbed my bib and my sunglasses, some base salt, and I was making my way out of transition. As I was making my way out of transition, that's when I slipped my bib over my head, got my glasses on, and my base salt into my side pocket of my kit. So I try not to waste any time in transition because, you know, it's kind of a fun thing to look back and see how you rate amongst your other peers.
Every single triathlon, I always come out too hot from T2 or T, whatever we want to call today. And especially in Chattanooga, that can be a bad thing because you kind of loop around, transition, and then there's a big hill, like maybe a half a mile in. And when I got to the hill, I was, as always, oh, I'm going out too hot. I probably need to chill a little bit. Going into the day, I was hoping that I could run around an 8-minute pace the entire day. And when I hit that hill, my body was like, bro, you just did this bike ride, we're not doing 8 minutes. And I think probably for about the first lap, it was closer to 8:30. And it wasn't until the second lap that I really kind of got to that 8-minute pace.
Honestly, I was quite nervous how the run was going to do. Today's run was my longest run since December. And that being said, my run fitness isn't like my cycling fitness, which, you know, I'm okay with because, you know, life gonna life, that's fine. I knew the run, I just needed to kind of find my steady pace and maintain it. And that's actually one of the last things that Tiffany told me too. She was like, I'm pretty confident you can hit this pace, just hit it, find your stride and maintain it and just see what happens. And that's exactly what I did. I was coming in right around 9-minute miles. I did give myself the chance to walk the aid stations just because I knew I was gonna need it. But that was the only time I walked, for the exception of Battery Hill. I knew personally that Battery Hill, which we go up twice, it was better for me to just walk up it as quick as I could as opposed to running.
I came out hot, which is what I always do, and then there's the dial it back, figure out where that pace is. And for the first lap, it was 8:30, and once I kind of came down after that first lap and went back out for the second one, that's where I kind of dialed it back up a little bit more. Last lap, the river walk portion, that's where you can kind of let loose a little bit. It's mostly flat, it's mostly shaded. That's where I try to make up my time. You get to Battery Place, there's two ways to approach it. You can kind of walk up it or you can charge up it. And neither approach is necessarily bad. Lately, I've tried to run up it and then use the downhill portion as you approach veterans as a chance to recover. And especially on the second lap, that's what I was trying to do. By the time I got to the bridge on that second lap, I mean, I was looking at my watch and doing the timing math, and even with the swim, like it was an unfamiliar number to see a low 4 number as I was crossing the bridge for the second time. I felt like it was well executed.
Colin Lord is here with Team Saunders Tri.
By my standards, I will say that the first lap went pretty quickly and I was actually really happy with how it was going. I powered through the first time up the pedestrian bridge, which is closed off to spectators now, which was a totally different feeling. That thing is deceptively hard, it really is. I knew that as long as I can get through that first lap, I can get through a second lap. Of course, second lap is always harder than the first, and my pace did fall off some, but I still feel like I held it together pretty well considering, you know, how hard of a bike I did and, you know, the lack of running that I did this season up to this point. Another thing I was really proud of was for the second year in a row of doing Chattanooga, I didn't have any GI issues, which was amazing. It's amazing how much time you can save when you don't have to jump into a porta potty. Let me just say that. 3 miles left, I knew that all I had to do was get through Battery Hill and the pedestrian bridge, and then after that, it was downhill. And after I did that pedestrian bridge for the second time, I just let it rip as best as I could. I let that downhill momentum just take me, and I didn't let up at all. I knew that the finish line wasn't exactly around the corner, but I knew it was close. I knew exactly where it was, and I dug deep into myself, and I just kept going as hard as I could. I swear, every time you step on that finish line carpet on your way to the finish line, it just does something to you. I put my hands up, tried to get the crowd into it, and they obliged, and they gave me some energy, and it was great. I actually heard the announcer call my name and say Team Saunders, and usually I'm so tuned out that I don't ever hear that, but it was great to actually hear it this time and acknowledge that and just recognize that.
Caitlin Sanders with Team Saunders Tri.
Crossing the finish line, there's just nothing like it. There really isn't.
I've never had a race where I was more excited to do another race. And now that it's evening, I'm sitting by this lovely fire that is a little too hot. That fire, no pun intended, continues to grow. I cannot wait to go back and do another one of these 70.3s and not a 69.1.
The big thing that I'm taking away from this race is that I can bike hard and do really good on the bike, and then also have a pretty good run as well. I'm excited to see what the next race will bring, because this just kind of lights my fire to just keep digging and digging.
We asked a competitor what inspired her to take part in the competition.
It's actually my 4th year doing 70.3 Chattanooga, and each year it just keeps getting better and better. The city of Chattanooga, y'all are absolutely fantastic. Y'all always come out in full force, are always so welcoming to have all of us here. And I know it's not easy for thousands of triathletes to come into your town and just kind of take over for the weekend. And it is much appreciated, because we know that if the town isn't welcoming, these events can't happen.
Kind of a fun thing that happened right after the race. The team and I, we were heading out to the pier over the river just to kind of, you know, take some shots, some pictures and such. And a cameraman from Channel 12 WDEF here in Chattanooga, he was like, "Hey, do you mind doing an interview?" I'm like, "Certainly, I don't mind at all." Hopefully I show that I'm a great ambassador of the sport, and maybe someone else might come into the sport. Who knows?
It's the fellowship amongst other triathletes. When you've done so many of these, you start to create a community.
Throughout these races, we always get comments, you know, love your channel, love your kit. But I think I got the best comment I've ever received today. Someone came running up behind me and said, they got into triathlon because of our channel. You have no idea how much that meant. It's been a tough year for Team Saunders Tri. It really has. We've had some ups and downs, just a lot of life. That statement right there really lights our fire and really gets us going to continue bringing all of this triathlon community that we love to life via YouTube. So thank you.